Hello everyone, welcome to my Evil Within, Akumu difficulty, no upgrade / keys walkthrough, and this is chapter 7, The Keeper. And this chapter is a little bit easier than chapter 6, and it's nowhere near as long as chapter 6. But I feel like this chapter just presents with certain flaws that I don't really like. I'm not a big fan of the pacing. I'm not a big fan of the new enemy types that are introduced as a replacement for the Haunted on this chapter, and I just don't like the boss fights. And the enemy types in particular, they just have some really bad hitboxes, and their moveset is pretty lazy, and they just don't have a lot of cool design choices, and don't believe a word I'm saying right now. Yeah, that's right, guys, I completely fooled you into thinking that this chapter was a bad chapter, but it isn't. Chapter 7 is one of my favorite chapters on this game, which is a completely redundant statement, considering that I love every single chapter on this game. There isn't a single chapter on the Evil Within that I don't like. The pacing on this chapter is phenomenal. The new enemy type that is a replacement for the Haunted on this chapter is phenomenal, and then the boss fight is a lot of fun, and it has some really cool design choices. But in the beginning, we do have to deal with 3 Haunted, and these 3 Haunted, they know where you are when you reach a particular threshold of this hallway. So that's why I specifically use a pistol shot to lure them over to me, and then I use a flashbolt, and then I get a double kill on them. Then with this third guy, he knows where I am because I reached the threshold of the room, and I'm going to try to shoot him in the leg while he's running, and I missed the first shot because of the random variable, but I managed to nail it on the second shot, and he is dead. And luckily for me, one of the enemies drops a grenade, so thank you so much for that, friend. And now we're going to get into the actual meat of Chapter 7, once we take the time to break some jars, grab some green gel that we don't need since this is a no upgrade walkthrough, and some sniper rifle rounds. So the whole objective of Chapter 7 is to obtain these lithographs that will allow us to gain access to the Keeper boss fight, and the process for doing so is so easy to do. And the new enemy types, as I've already mentioned, are phenomenal. They are so good. And I'm not going to be able to discuss them right now, since I haven't gotten to the part involving the alter egos yet. But the first thing you're going to have to do, after placing the lithograph inside of this artwork over here, is to go down the left path. And you have to go down the left path first, and not the right path, because on the left path, there are a couple of valves that are controlling smoke that is present inside of the right path. And if you disable the valves on the left path, you'll be able to gain access to a couple of areas on the right path, and those additional areas have ammo you can pick up that will be beneficial in the long run. And I'm disabling the gas over here, and we are finally going to get the chance to deal with the new enemy type, which is the alter ego. So the alter ego is this creature that has 2 heads, and the reason why the alter egos have 2 heads is because at the time of being implanted within STEM, the individuals who would eventually manifest into these alter egos had dissociative identity disorder, so the 2 personalities melded together into this creature that has 2 heads, and the 2 personalities are eternally hating each other, as Ruvik describes in his audio log, which I think is the coolest explanation as to why this enemy type exists. The psychological aspects intrigue me so much within this game, and how they apply to the enemy types is just so cool to understand. And the alter egos themselves, mechanically, are phenomenal. And the reason why this enemy type is great is because they die instantly from the stomp. And the stomp is a mechanic that so many people sleep on, because at the time of using the stomp, like very early on within the game, people are like, oh, the stomp just isn't that useful, why the heck would I want to use this? Well, it turns out, Shinji Mikami, being the clever man that he is, intentionally made the mechanic appear useless, so that you would never think to use a stomp against these enemies. And that is one of the most clever design choices ever when it comes to hiding a mechanic's true potential. Shinji Mikami is an absolute genius when it comes to hiding the true potential of mechanics like that. It's like the Krauser from Resident Evil 4. Krauser is a boss that is heavily resistant to a lot of other weapons except for the knife. If you use the knife against him, he will always get stunned, and it does the highest amount of damage to him, and that's the intended design choice for Krauser. Shinji Mikami did it to hide the true potential of the knife so that he could get players to use the knife in that one specific moment. Just like in the case of Resident Evil 4, it's the exact same case here. Like, these enemies are practically a Resident Evil 4 enemy. Resident Evil 4 enemies have some really cool design choices to them that allow you to easily deal with them. One great example I can give from Resident Evil 4 is with the Navisidors that fly. Because regardless of how many hits it takes to actually finish off the Navisidors that fly, if you hit them out of the air, they will always die. If they're on the ground, they will take a lot more punishment before they actually die. But being able to shoot them out of the air, to control the encounters with them, is so beneficial. And just like with the Navisidors, with the alter egos, you can get alter egos to mantle a ledge so that they can get up towards you. And then while they're in the animation, you can stomp them and they will die instantly. So long as you do the actual stomp. If you do the kick will not kill them. It will just knock them away. Oh, and by the way, for that particular sequence, when I was using the axe on that alter ego, he was in a preset animation where he has to walk out a little bit and then he does his running attack. But I was able to hit him before he did his running attack, which is why I was able to get that sequence done. And then for the next 3 alter egos, I was able to run past them because they were in preset animations. And we're about to encounter some more alter egos coming up, and these guys will just crawl on the ground, and they have a grab move. So you have to make sure you're at their sides or you're behind them, and then just stomp them, and you will instantly kill them. And right here, I will get a double kill. Oh, look at that. Awesome. And then there's one more guy coming up. You got to stomp him before he gets a chance to rise off the ground. And he's dead. Look at that. A phenomenal enemy design. It's so cool. The only enemy type in this game that offers you some kind of advantage by using a mechanic that is so underutilized. And it helps so much in saving your ammo, because you need all this ammo for the later chapters. Any bad player would just shoot these enemies without thinking twice, and they would just waste a lot of precious ammo. I bet they would do the exact same thing with the regenerators from Resident Evil 4, where they would just shoot them to death, when shooting the regenerators to death is the worst thing you want to do, because they take a ridiculous amount of punishment from guns to actually go down. But if you shoot a regenerator's leg off using a shotgun, and then get behind them and knife them to death, they don't stand a chance. You can stun lock them to death with the knife and save all your ammo. And if you don't want to deal with them, you can just use a sprint counter against them. Like, that's exactly what a professional player would do. And Shinji Mikami just encourages a lot of professional play with his games. And that's exactly what Akumu difficulty does on this game. It forces you to play the game at a more advanced level, demonstrating your ability to recognize situations, and to recognize any kind of mechanic that can potentially help you out, and to recognize how enemies behave, and to recognize how to deal with them. This difficulty is honestly one of the best difficulties ever made. It's properly designed, there's a lot of intricate thought put into play to help make this difficulty functional, and make it a lot of fun, and also challenging at the same time. And it just does so much more with its modifiers. Not only does it make it so that you die in one hit, but it rearranges enemy placements, it rearranges trap placements, like this right here. When you disarm this wire, this trap appears if you don't get onto the elevator in time. It changes item placements, it makes disarming explosive traps a little bit harder to do, and so much more. There's more to this difficulty than just the simple lazy changes of, oh, we're gonna make your damage less, and we're gonna make it so that the enemy's having ridiculous amounts of life. Like, it's so much more than that. And be careful right here. This guy is going to trigger a trap when he falls off the rope, which is that. But it doesn't matter. It's so slow, you can easily tell what's about to happen. And here's an explosive trap. And this is actually a pretty big encounter with the alter egos coming up. So, the moment you interact with this wheel, you need to get off of it, because the alter egos are going to come from that door over there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lure them onto here. I'm going to stand directly above them, and I know they're going to try to mantle up towards me. And during the mantle animation, they're very vulnerable to a stomp. You have to wait for just the right moment during the mantle animation to actually initiate the stomp, because you get moments like this, where instead of doing a stomp, Sebastian does a kick, and the kick does knock him away, but it doesn't kill them. Like, that right there was perfect. And I think one of the main reasons why Sebastian prioritized the kick more so than the stomp is because he ends up prioritizing the wrong alter ego. See, right there? He was prioritizing the alter ego that was farther away from me, so the stomp didn't detect, and instead he favored the kick. And this is perfect. Watch this. Look at that. Multi-kills with the stomp. That was perfect because Sebastian prioritized the right alter ego. And watch this, by the way. This guy comes very close to hitting me. That's the main risk with doing this particular strategy. The enemies that are in the hole can still do their melee attacks, and they can also do their acid attacks in order to hit you. So you have to be very careful when going for stomps. And you can also use matches to make the section go by a little bit faster, because you might potentially get a multi-kill. It's just the biggest problem is that the alter egos don't die very quickly from the matches. They are able to do their suicide attacks a lot whenever they're on fire, compared to the normal haunted. And that is the end of that section. And if you go into this room over here, you can go the full distance and get a locker key, but of course I'm not going for keys, and there's no other ammunition to really collect aside from this, and also the shotgun shells that I passed. So now that this is done, go ahead and pick up the axe that is near the wheel, because you'll be needing this axe against the Keeper. The Keeper dies in one hit from the axe, which is a pretty cool design choice. I mean, the Keeper has a lot of really cool design choices. And he's a very unique kind of enemy. You know, an enemy that has a safe for a head, and then his ability to teleport by killing himself. It's so interesting. I mean, Akumi Nakamura disagrees with some aspects of the Keeper's design, however. And if you don't know, Akumi Nakamura was the lead artist for The Evil Within, and she was supposed to be the game director for Ghostwire Tokyo, before she ultimately left Tango Gameworks to begin a new journey in her life. But she had some things to say about the Keeper's design in this game. While she did like the way the Keeper looked, she didn't like the fact that it had the ability to manifest itself from the saves. And the reason why is because she wanted the Keeper to feel like a real presence, and she didn't want to have any kind of illusory or fantasy-like elements associated with that particular enemy. And the fact that it had the ability to manifest itself from the safe really disappointed her when she was made aware of this fact. But I'm honestly surprised she has this particular criticism, because, I mean, Laura, for instance, she manifests out of a corpse. So why is it that Ikumi Nakamura doesn't voice the exact same complaint with Laura? In fact, it makes total sense for the Keeper to have his kind of teleportation ability and his ability to manifest himself, because he's a creation of Ruvik's own mind, and Ruvik has the ability to teleport, so it makes total sense for one of Ruvik's own creations to have very similar abilities to his own. And Laura was the same case as well. She had the ability to teleport short distances because she was one of Ruvik's own creations. So, I don't really agree with Akumi Nakamura's statement that she doesn't really like the idea of the Keeper manifesting itself, because I feel like there's a lot of logic to back up the fact that the Keeper can manifest itself because of the fact that he is a creation of Ruvik's mind. And speaking of the Keeper, we're about to have the boss fight with the Keeper shortly, after this little trap moment. And there he is, the big cheese of this whole entire section and the warden of this prison-like area. And you're going to get caught in a barbed wire trap, and the barbed wire traps will not kill you instantly on Akumu difficulty, but they do ensnare you and open you up to the Keeper's instant kill attack. For this particular barbed wire trap, Sebastian only has to knife the trap once in order to get out of it, but for every other barbed wire trap afterwards, Sebastian has to knife the trap 2 times to break out of it, and he's vulnerable for quite a long time, so you have to be very careful of those barbed wire traps. And this part right here, take the path exactly like how I do it. You gotta hug the left-hand side, and then follow the path of the traps so that you can figure out where you're going. And there we go. That is the end of that section. You get unlimited sprint, and you don't even have to sprint. You can actually jog through that whole entire section, which is pretty interesting. And this is the beginning of the boss fight. At the beginning, you can use 2 sniper rifle shots to finish this guy off. I'm going to use the bolt cancel trick so I can fire the sniper rifle faster by swapping weapons, and then swapping back to the sniper rifle. And I'm going to pick up the axe, and I'm going to save it for the next time I have to encounter the Keeper in a mandatory encounter. And there is a trophy you can actually get for this particular sequence where you only kill the Keeper during mandatory encounters. So the first time you encounter him and the 3rd time you encounter him. This particular encounter right here, just turn the valve and ignore him. It's going to make it seem like you're completely vulnerable, but you're not. Because of the fact that you're turning the valve, the Keeper interprets Sebastian as in some kind of unique state, where he's only able to do the instant kill attack on Sebastian. And that's why he was very slow to respond just then, and I managed to get past him, and I've locked him out temporarily. But of course, this is not going to stop him, and he's just going to teleport inside of the room once I decide to turn the next valve. And another mandatory encounter will trigger with him. So, for this mandatory encounter, I'm going to use the axe. The axe, as I've already mentioned, is a one-hit kill on him, but if you hit him while he's in his manifesting animation, it will not instantly kill him. You have to wait until he returns into a neutral state of just trying to chase you, and then you actually melee him with the axe. So he's manifesting right now. He's still in the manifesting animation, even though it looks like it's complete. Wait for him to turn around, and then melee him. And he's dead. Every time the Keeper dies, he drops 1,000 green gel, so this is a pretty good area to farm green gel if you need it for the upgrades. Or if you're trying to go for the trophy where you need to upgrade all of Sebastian's stats, or upgrade all of his weapons. But of course, since this is a no upgrade walkthrough, the green gel is completely pointless. Now, for this final one, he destroys the valve, so we need to get a replacement. The replacement valve is right here, and to buy myself some time, I'm going to freeze him with the freeze bolt. You don't have to do this. If you're willing to save up on a freeze bolt, you can just turn the valve a little bit, wait for him to get close to you, and then just get off of it. But I just don't find it to be that practical of a strategy. And once you turn this valve, the gas will completely disable, and you can choose to leave, but I'm going to demonstrate how to farm for trap parts. The method for doing so is very easy. If he is already dropping trap parts by the time you finish turning that valve, you're going to be able to proceed with the strategy. If he is not immediately dropping trap parts, you have to jumpstart his AI, and the way you jumpstart his AI is to get him to flinch. The way I get him to flinch is I use the shotgun. I wait for him to do his melee attack where he spins his sack and then tries to melee you. And you have to be very careful of that move because it can be a 3-hit combo sometimes. But during his recovery frames for that particular melee animation, I shoot him to get him to flinch, and the moment he flinches, that's when the strategy is going to work. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lure him into that room, I'm going to get him to throw his traps 3 or 4 times, and then I need him out of that room, because the Keeper will throw traps 6 times before he decides to stop permanently. He will only resume throwing traps if you disable 2 traps. And he's currently done what I need him to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop the whole entire room. I'm going to get some distance from him. And the moment I gain enough distance from him, and I'm near a trap, I'm going to disarm it. Because disarming these barbed wire traps takes quite a while. The reason why I need him to throw several traps in that other room is so that he doesn't throw any traps in my way when I'm trying to do this particular path. As long as he keeps throwing traps, I'll be able to infinitely farm these traps. And as long as I gain some distance from him, he will never catch up to me. And I've currently disarmed 2 traps, so I know he's going to throw traps where he is currently. As long as the traps aren't in any kind of unfavorable position, I can easily disarm them. If they are in any kind of unfavorable position, you have to shoot them. You can use either the pistol or the shotgun if they are in any kind of unfavorable position. But I'm not going to stay in this area for that long. I'm just going to proceed onward just to show you that you don't have to be sword-lined upon this farming technique. But there you go. You have an easy way of farming trap parts and making Akumu difficulty that much easier to do. Despite this, however, I still recommend that you treat it as if you don't have a lot of ammo. That way, you're going to be very cautious with your approaches, and you're going to be able to save any kind of ammo for emergency situations. But the fight with the Keeper is done. All you gotta do now is a quick time event sequence where the Keeper is going to try to kill you with this safe. And once you've done this quick time event sequence, the fight is going to be over, and the chapter is practically done at that point. And we're going to be treated to a really satisfying moment where Sebastian completely crushes the Keeper underneath this trap, and he gets to give some final words to this Keeper. Take this! That is so satisfying to hear every single time I hear it. There's just something about the way Sebastian delivers that line that makes it so memorable, and that's why I constantly recite it. But that is the end of Chapter 7. Stay tuned for the future chapters. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.